Yeah, yeah. Ball so hard, you better believe me, it's scary. It's basketball at the bar with Calvin and Barry. So put a tip in the jar, cause these dudes can really fill it up. Whether it's buckets you need or just a beer in a cup. We're here for fresh conversations, got some delicious libations. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. My boys got you covered like you being guarded by paying. From the glove to the claw and everyone else in between. Calvin and Barry got everything that you need. So sit back, relax, because we're starting the show. It's basketball at the bar, grab your drinks and let's go. Yeah. Grab a drink and let's go. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Calvin and Barry. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Let's get it.
What's up, ballers? Welcome back to the bar, where the takes are hot and the drinks are cold. There's no dress code, and you can take us wherever you go. So pull up a stool, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe. This is Basketball at the Bar. Grab your drinks, and let's go. All right, Calvin, I'm opening up a nice, fresh Pacifico here. I'm ready. We're at the bar. Welcome in, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Good to be here. Another Wednesday night party.
It is another Wednesday night party. To those of you that are just joining in or have not seen this before, we do this every single Wednesday night. It's kind of a tradition for us. We started in college. Calvin and I were roommates. We had a third roommate named Shay. And every single Wednesday night we had a party at our house. And we were the only three people that were allowed to come. Might not sound like a very fun time, but it was
we had a great time.
It was the best. It was a lot of fun. So we're continuing that here on the channel every single Wednesday night. Shout out to Shay. Thank you. And Calvin, we're here. We're talking about basketball. Want to give a shout out, a special shout out to the bouncer. We appreciate him and everything that he does. He keeps all the riffraff out of the bar here. On your way in, make sure you show him your ID, and no cover charge tonight, so that is good. But welcome in, everybody. We got the Stream Elements bot in here. Tito is here. Matthew, thank you guys. We have a big show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about all the trash that's going on with the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to talk about the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Warriors. And we're going to check in on the standings and kind of go over anything else that's going on currently in the NBA. So, Calvin, you ready to get started here?
Oh, I'm ready to get started. Definitely.
You know, the bouncer is so strong. Yeah. Did you know that?
You guys are killing me.
Matthew's got that beat stuck in his head, I think.
He sure does. He sure does.
My dog's here. She's like decided to wake up right during the middle of the show. Perfect. All right.
Do you think the Stream Elements bot prefers pancakes or waffles?
Probably friends with Wafflebot would be my assumption here. So let's jump here into the Brooklyn Nets.
Wafflebot is welcome to the show anytime if he's out there.
Let's jump here into the Brooklyn Nets. I've been talking a lot. Let's hear you talk. So, sorry, Loa, she's pushing me. Can you give everyone an update on, or just kind of some context on what this whole Kyrie Irving comment situation is like? I guess there's a post that he put out that has since been removed, but it's definitely, more of the same from him.
It's more of the same. I won't give too many details because I'll be quite honest, I'm so sick and tired of Kyrie Irving at this point that I don't really pay attention as much anymore. I do know that he is obviously being questioned because he supported, I think it was a movie or a show or something like that had, and anybody who knows can correct me if I'm wrong, but that basically supported an anti-Semitic or had anti-Semitic reference in it. And the Nets and Kyrie have recently, I think as of today, donated $500,000 to an organization that support or is built to educate people on hate and racism and stuff like that. They're trying to sweep this under the rug as quickly as they can. I'd like to say that this is the biggest problem facing the Nets currently, but I'm not really sure that that's true.
Yeah, so I guess he shared a link to a documentary called Hebrews to Negroes, something about, Wake Up Black America or something like that. Was peddling some theories that I guess have been debunked or controversial, whatever. Apparently, I don't know this movie. I've never seen it, but apparently it's not okay. And Kyrie Irving, posted
there aren't
this
many
stuff.
things out there today that are okay if you ask most people. So I'm not sure how to take that, but
You what?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how bad it is. Is
Yeah,
it really something
exactly.
that's actually that bad, or is it just people are, Karen is out here saying that it's bad?
Yeah. Anyways, it's apparently not okay. And, there was multiple people that agreed with that, including the Nets owner, the ADL came out, the Anti-Defamation League came out. That's who they met with today. Kyrie at first was saying, I'm going to post whatever opinions I want. And it was kind of weird. His statements were very contradictory, right? He got into it with a reporter. And, on one end, he said, my platform is this, and, I do what I want. And then the other one was basically like, I should be able to say whatever I want. I'm a person. And it's tough, man, because I feel you. Like, I think I should be able to say whatever I want, right? But at the same time, freedom of speech does not mean freedom without consequences, right? And, when you have a platform, when you're paid millions of dollars to be this star and this guy, there are certain things that you need to follow, So, it is a kind of a weird situation. It just, for me, the weirdest thing is it doesn't seem that he really understands. Like, some moments he wants to be, a role model, and then other moments he does not. We saw the infamous video from Charles Barkley, right? The commercial of I'm not a role model, blah, 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 all this. Kyrie just needs to honestly choose a lane here. That's how my opinion goes about this whole thing. Like, yes, I'm anti-hate. I'm anti, spreading misinformation, all that stuff. But honestly, the biggest thing for me on this whole thing is, like, Kyrie needs to pick a lane, dude. Are you a role model or are you not?
Yeah, and if you're on his team, it's are you with us or are you against us? I mean, I think Kyrie would have been better off being a tennis player, because then you can say and do whatever you want, and when it negatively impacts you, people will say, well, that's his choice. He's a tennis player. It only affects him. He's a basketball player, and he has to share the court with four other teammates every night who really need him and really rely on him. And, again, I've said this before, I'm all for standing up for what you believe in. But at the same time, when you've made a commitment to a team, you have to honor that as well. You have to figure out how to do both. And that's obviously what the great, visionaries, people like Jackie Robinson and Bill Russell and all these great men that we think of, they were able to do both. Muhammad Ali, they stood up very strongly and very, forcibly for what they believed in, but they also knew that there was a bigger picture, and the way that they had to conduct themselves was matched that same intensity accordingly. And I just don't see that from Kyrie.
What's up, Alfie Man? Brian, welcome in, guys. Yeah, it's so crazy, right? Because you're not going to tell me that anybody in the NBA or everybody in the NBA, that not a single one of them didn't want to be an NBA player growing up, right? Especially Kyrie Irving, right? Like, you say, oh, you don't want the smoke, you don't want all this attention and all this, but like, I know your dream was to be an NBA player. So there's multiple things that come with that. They say on one front, it's, well, they told me to shut up and dribble. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak. And then in other terms, it's like, I just want to play basketball. I just love basketball, and I just want to be a basketball player because that's what I'm good at. And it's like, you got to choose a side here. Speaking of choosing sides, the Nets officially chose a side here and they filed and fired Steve Nash. he is officially out as the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. My question for you, Calvin, 8 games in, currently, I believe, they were 7 games in when the move happened. Did you think that Nash was going to last this long, or what?
Well, no, I thought Nash would have lasted a little bit longer than this. But look, when you've had the offseason that this team had, you have all the outside noise, the outside distraction. Unfortunately, even though a lot of it maybe is Steve Nash's fault, he's the head coach. He's got to be able to get them to play at a winning level. But he's going to be the fall guy. That's exactly what this is. They need a scapegoat. They need to make something happen that makes it look like, okay, we're trying to, apply the tourniquet here and stop the bleeding. We're not going to trade Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant. I don't know if that stays true for the rest of the season, but we're not going to do that at this moment. So what is the quickest and easiest thing that we can do? Make a change at head coach. So it seemed pretty obvious to me. Steve Nash is probably the happiest guy in the world, though. Wow. Right. He's probably so relieved going to bed tonight knowing that he doesn't have to wake up and look at Kyrie Irving tomorrow and say, hey, man, are you going to be focused today? What's going on? Like, are you with us? He doesn't have to go to Ben Simmons and say, Ben, are you sure you're feeling okay to play today? Should we take it easy with you? He doesn't have to go to Kevin Durant and say, hey, am I doing all right? You asked for me to be fired a couple months ago. Are we cool? Like, it's got to be a much, much, much better situation for Steve Nash right now.
Right. According to the article I read, it was a mutual decision, right? Which I guess they say a lot of times. But I remember I texted you in that group text, and I'm like, do you think that Steve Nash maybe, asked for this after the Kyrie Irving statements leaked? Because, we already know he was in a tough position. We already know he was on the hot seat and all the stuff that happened in the offseason. Maybe this was the last straw for him, right? And, I saw another interesting take from Amari Stoudemire today, who I was not paying attention. I thought Amari was still an assistant coach on this team. Apparently he's not anymore. He spent the past 2 years as an assistant coach under Steve Nash. I didn't even know that he converted to Judaism, I believe in 2020. So Amari basically said, Kyrie's wrong. When you make a mistake, you need to apologize and, say I made a mistake, which was his take. And then you announced today, the $500,000 donation by Kyrie, $500,000 donation by the Nets. That is kind of, saying I'm sorry, but it just, I don't feel like we've got a real apology from Kyrie. But Nash is gone, and I think you're right. I think he couldn't be happier to be fired by this team and move on. But the craziest news, it's crazy, dude. You know what they say is fact is stranger than fiction, right? And so as soon as we hear of Steve Nash getting fired, who's the name that pops up as, the potential replacement?
Ime Udoka.
Ime Udoka.
Boston Celtics.
A player I enjoyed watching. I thought they had a great year last year. I love what he did to the team to turn them around. But this dude had a Brooklyn Nets offseason of his own, right? Going through all this drama with, sleeping with a staffer or multiple staffers. I don't even know what's true anymore, Calvin. It's so hard. There's so much information. There's too much information, right? They say we're in the misinformation age. I think we're in the too much information age, where there's just too many opinions and stories coming out from all different people. I heard that he slept with the owner's wife. I heard that he slept with players. I heard so many stupid things.
With players?
Yeah. That it's like, who knows what to believe at this point. But whatever happened, it was enough for him to get suspended for an entire year from that team, right? Now Brooklyn is potentially going to be signing him as their head coach, which... great basketball move, right? However, does this send the wrong message to a franchise that's already gone through enough scandals already?
Yeah, it just is. It's a very, very interesting timing, right? Like, again, as you mentioned, from a basketball standpoint, this might be a move that potentially saves them. If you really think that Ime Udoka is that great of a coach in a small sample size. But when you factor in everything else that's going on, it's like, do you really want to add another major, major distraction like that to this team? How is that going to help anything? And then there's just the question of how does he get the team to play better overall? Their roster is not really that well put together right now. I mean, if Ben Simmons was playing like the old Ben Simmons, it would be a much different story. But right now what they look like is a disjointed pickup team. I mean, it's... okay, Kyrie's got the ball this time. He's going to try and look to get his own shot. Next time down the court, let's make sure Kevin gets the ball. They don't look like a team to me. They show brief moments defensively of playing well, but outside of that, they're just a giant mess. Seth Curry, who was coming off some of the best years of his career, he's been basically a no-show for them. Joe Harris is coming off of an injury. He hasn't really played that well. They're just a mess altogether. So I have no idea what bringing in a guy like Udoka is going to do for Brooklyn. And then there's the other side of it. I saw a lot of comments from Marcus Smart today, and it kind of made me realize, like, yeah, these guys are still dealing with that as well. Marcus Smart said earlier today that he's in shock because he thought Ime Udoka was coming back to this team the whole time. That seems to be what the Boston Celtics players were feeling. Like, okay, he's out for the year, but he's still our guy. He's going to come back and coach us. And now they're like, well, fuck, he's going to go coach a division rival. It's just a very, very weird situation for both teams.
I mean, who do you think wins here if he moves in with the Nets? Is this a win for the Nets, or is this, a win for the Celtics? That they basically resolve, because if they move on from this, like, the controversy's over for them, right? That's I think the one thing I look at from a Boston perspective is, if he continues to stay with the team, there might be an awkward time at the end of the season or maybe close to the playoffs where it's like, okay, am I still your head coach, or are you going back to this guy? Versus if he's gone, there's kind of a clear, slate, and we know what's happening. What are your thoughts there?
Man, I don't know. I think it's too early to call. I'm not really sure at this point, with everything that's going on in Brooklyn outside of playing basketball, that any head coach is going to be able to step in there and just fix it automatically. Like, that seems very unrealistic to me. So that's why you're starting to hear now that Ben Simmons is on the trading block again. And who knows, maybe they'll even look to, if they keep losing, they might just decide to blow it up altogether and say, boom, yeah, I like that, most dysfunctional. They might just decide to blow the whole thing up and start trading away everyone like they maybe should have done this summer to begin with. So it's a huge gamble on both parts. It's clear that Brooklyn, who is one of the most win now teams, right, needs to do something desperate to try to save this situation. And the fact that Ime Udoka is just sitting there, that part is still confusing to me, because it's like he's still under contract with the Boston Celtics, is he not? So
yeah,
Boston's just going to buy him out or release him, or they have to trade for him. It's still a weird situation all around. I don't know what happens. I will say this. I feel much more confident about the Boston Celtics as a basketball team right now than I do about the Brooklyn Nets. So
good point. Yeah, I just had to share this. This is a beauty, shared by our guy Frankie Cardicelli. Shout out to Frankie. Hit it on the head there. Definitely. You mentioned Ben Simmons. Is that your second favorite player?
Oh, he's my all-time favorite player. You know that.
Your all-time favorite player, Ben Simmons, is now on the trade block. What's the right move for the Nets to make here?
Man, that's one hell of a question. It's loaded in so many ways. I'll be honest. I think the right move for the Nets is to say, fuck it and blow the entire thing up. I'm trading everyone. I'm just getting rid of everybody and starting from scratch. I think if you're Joe Tsai and Sean Marks, you must be insomniacs at this point because you can't sleep because this team is so talented and yet so dysfunctional. And I just wonder how long you can go to work over and over again knowing that there's people in your organization that either don't seem to care much about everybody else or say that they want to be traded and then, come back and say they're ready to play again. You traded away James Harden, who may have actually been the best person to have there out of all of these guys, for a guy that hasn't really played much at all. And when he has played, he's looked very rusty. They're paying him a lot of money. The whole thing is just Nick Friedel, who's a guy that covers the NBA for ESPN. He's covering the Brooklyn Nets specifically this year, and he says that being around this team, they're the most dysfunctional team he may have ever seen. It's really quite astonishing just how much turmoil is going through this organization right now. So,
and he's the one that got into it.
It's really
with
hard
Kyrie.
to pull that trigger. Yeah, it's really hard to pull that trigger, right? Because when you've got Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, you think, well, we should be better than 90% of the league already with just those guys.
Yep.
But it's not working right now at all. So it may be time to just hit the self-destruct button.
I mean, I totally feel you on that, and maybe that's what they do. But it's really tough, man, because like what we talked about in the group text, what are you really going to get for Kyrie, right? Is anybody going to trade for Kyrie? Maybe you go for the Lakers deal, you bring in Westbrook, that totally pisses off Durant, right? But you do get 2 future first round picks potentially if the Lakers are willing to do that. And, the more they lose, probably the more likely they are to make that happen. They actually won tonight. They beat the Pelicans here in overtime, 120-117. So they effectively have the same record now as the Sacramento Kings. But, that's pretty much your only option, in my opinion. And honestly, if I'm the Lakers, why would I even trade for Kyrie Irving? I mean, if I'm doing a Westbrook for Kyrie swap, one for one, I'm in. But giving up all this future draft capital for this guy, it just doesn't really make sense. Because I just get the vibe from Kyrie that the dude could retire at any time. He could just say, F it, I don't want to play basketball. I'm tired of dealing with these, what do you call the media? These pawns. I'm out. And then I could see him retire for a year or 2 years, and then I could see him coming back to the NBA and saying, I realigned myself, and coming to play for another team. He is one of the most questionable people, and I don't mean that in terms of his character or all that, because I don't really know the guy, but I'm just saying in terms of what he's going to do, I have no idea. So if you make a deal for him and to get him out of there, it could be addition by subtraction, but then what does that do for KD, right? Does that piss KD off and he wants out? I'm not really quite sure. However, I do have to say, just the starting, building blocks of KD and Ben Simmons doesn't sound bad. These guys complement each other extremely well. It's just what else you're able to bring in, and it's how much money they're making. But I just feel so bad for Joe Tsai, and I don't feel bad for billionaires very often, Calvin, but I just feel so bad for this guy. I don't think I've ever seen 2 players, destroy a franchise as much as I've seen Kyrie and KD do to this Brooklyn Nets team. This team had made the playoffs. They had a first-time All-Star in D'Angelo Russell. They had all these young, talented players like Jared Allen, who's absolutely killing it with the Cavaliers, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Karis LeVert.
Also killing it with the Cavaliers.
They had so much talent on that team, and they basically spent, a $250 million already on Kyrie and KD for what? A headache? I don't think I've seen any 2 players cause as much just havoc on one franchise as I've ever seen. I mean, people like to hate on LeBron, right? They're like, oh, LeBron went to the Lakers and he got rid of Lonzo and Ingram and Julius Randle and Hart and all these players. The dude won you a title. He made you a lot of money, and he's still there. He's not demanding trades. He's not, making questionable posts or any of that stuff. So I don't think I've ever seen two players do as much damage to a franchise as we're seeing here. I don't think so. It's crazy.
In as short of amount of time as well, right? Like they haven't been there that long. And KD was on the bench for the first year that he was there. I don't think it's even been that long, has it?
Oh, no. This is year 4. This is year 4.
Yeah. So, it's really crazy. It's very, very, very unfortunate. And it's such a difficult thing because they could end up playing their way out of this. Like Ben Simmons, I think, is the key right now to this team performing
definitely
at a more optimal level. Durant is putting in Durant-like numbers every night. Kyrie, not every night, but he's played pretty well overall, at least offensively to start this season. Outside of that, they're getting no help from a supporting cast, which I think people thought maybe they were a little bit better than they actually are going into this season, but they're getting zero help outside of those two guys. And then those two guys are the ones that are creating all these off the court problems. So it's damned if I do, damned if I won't. I don't know what the hell is going on in Brooklyn.
So we talked briefly, I guess, about what potentially they could get for Kyrie Irving. Not much, right? Maybe a draft pick or some expiring salaries. I floated an idea to you of potentially, a 3-team trade with the Utah Jazz, where they bring in a couple role players if they decide they want to compete this year, not trade KD, just get rid of Kyrie and add some more shooters, which is a potential. The Utah Jazz have been playing well. We'll talk about that here.
Really well.
But, what do you think they could realistically get for a guy like Ben Simmons? And what could they realistically get for a guy like Kevin Durant? Because we've heard a lot of unrealistic situations this offseason. But realistically, what do you think they get from these guys?
Well, for Ben Simmons, I don't think you're going to get as much as you would hope if you're the Nets. You're going to have to take a bit of a loss on this one, and that's simply because the guy makes a lot of money. Yes, he's still young, but coming off of not just injuries, back injuries, which are problematic, as a player continues to go, typically speaking, that's a worrisome injury to have. A mental issue is obviously a very, very worrisome issue to have. And this guy has not, albeit still early on, he hasn't played a ton of games yet. He needs time to kind of get his legs back under him and everything. But his play has not dictated what you would expect from him so far. So if any team is going to trade for Ben Simmons, they're not going to be offering their best packages for this guy. That's just common sense, right? And I think you have to know that if you're the Nets going into it. Durant, on the other hand, he's still one of the best scorers in the game, and he's Kevin Durant, as we always hear him say, right? So they're going to be able to get something good in return for him. The question is, what are they going to be willing to accept ultimately? All summer long, they had this huge, ridiculous asking price because it's the off season. You just saw, some of the other moves made, like the Rudy Gobert deal, and you're thinking, all right, well, Kevin Durant is an all-world player. We should be able to get everything we want in return for him. And all the other teams in the NBA were smart, and they said, no, we're not going to do that right now. We're going to wait until you get a little desperate. They might be starting to get a little more desperate now. So I think you still get an all-star player plus picks in return for Kevin Durant. The question is how many picks? Do you get another complementary player like a shooter, which they could really use as well? And again, which team is desperate enough to say, we're all in to make this move right now, given everything that's going on in Brooklyn?
Any teams you see potentially taking that risk, like maybe the Miami Heat? If I know we got a lot
Miami
of Miami
is definitely a team I think that would be at the top of the or near the top right now, just because they've gotten off to a rough start and they could use some more size They could use some more scoring. Obviously, every team looks for shooting and stuff like that. They were very high on him this offseason. So, yes, I would definitely say that Miami is going to be maybe one of those teams willing to do the move before others. But, again, when it comes to Kevin Durant, literally every team is going to be calling Brooklyn about him because he's Kevin Durant. That's just where we are. So Brooklyn's going to have, I'm sure, a ton if they go down this road. They're going to have a ton of offers to choose from. The question is, which one do they want to go with?
I know we got a bunch of Kings fans watching, and earlier we talked about, what we'd potentially give up for a guy like Ben Simmons. Do you think it would make sense for a team like Sacramento to go after a guy like KD that's under contract? And, maybe not Sacramento specifically, but a team similar to them, a team that, has not been able to attract big name free agents. So they're forced to trade picks and young players for a guy that's locked up, long term.
Yes. If somebody like Kevin Durant is available, I don't care if you're Orlando or Golden State, you're going to be interested, right? Because getting a guy like that, whatever position you're in, if you're in Orlando, all of a sudden you just took 3 huge steps forward towards being relevant again, or maybe even more, depending on what you have to give up. If you're Golden State, you just kept the championship window open another 4 years, something like that. So every team is going to have a want and a desire to trade for Durant. You look at Oklahoma City and Utah. They both have every first-round pick for the next 800 years. A lot of people think, well, maybe they want to use that to get Victor Wembanyama. Kevin Durant's a pretty proven 7-foot scorer already in the league. Maybe use some of those picks to get him. Every team is going to want somebody who's a player of Kevin Durant's caliber. The bigger question mark is Ben Simmons. What do they get for him? You talk about desperate. I think at this point, if you trade for Ben Simmons, you have to be desperate.
Could you imagine? Oklahoma City's got so much. They could potentially get Victor Wembanyama and trade for Kevin Durant. Yeah. And trade for Kevin Durant. And they got Chet Holmgren. Man, that would be a scary, futuristic team of tall, lanky guys that could shoot the ball. That would be crazy. That would be crazy.
That would be nuts.
Yeah, Matthew, they don't get anything for Kyrie, though. Yeah. We need some face tats for the next one, Calvin. All right. I know you're tired about talking about the Nets. And, I feel like we're probably going to be talking about them next week as well. So we can move on.
A dumpster fire burns for a long time. So we're going to be talking about them for a while.
A lot of fuel over there for that fire.
That's right.
Let's talk about the Clippers here. The Clippers, they're struggling. They're 4-4, which is funny. I say struggling because my team is. I wish they were 4-4, but they're 4-4 here. Kawhi Leonard has not been available. There hasn't been a lot of clarity on what's going on with him. The last thing I saw was a designation for rest for a knee injury, which is kind of weird. How are you feeling about the Clippers? Because you and I were so high on them going into the season. Yes, we had a caveat there, right? We were like, they got to stay healthy. But, the addition of John Wall.
You can say that for every team, though.
And, bringing some of these guys back. Like, I had really high hopes for this Clippers team. I think that this team could be the best 3-and-D team in the league and have potentially 2 superstars on the roster.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. I think I'm on record on this show of picking the Clippers to go to the NBA Finals this year and lose to Milwaukee, being the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. It's become pretty clear to me that that's not going to happen. Not necessarily that they can't win a title, but they're not playing for the regular season. They're going to lose games because they're going to rest guys. Yep. The Kawhi Leonard situation feels very eerily similar to when he was in San Antonio, and it was every night you were like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he actually hurt? Is he not hurt? It feels a lot like that. I think they've already announced he's going to miss the next 2 games after this. He's already missed like 1 or 2 prior to today. So they are very. It seems very clear to me that they are taking a very cautious approach to this season. They know that they have a talented roster, but they don't want to risk anything when it comes to George, Leonard, or Wall. So those guys are not going to play a lot of regular season games. The hope is that you still stay in the mix. You know, maybe you can get a first round home court advantage in the playoffs. And then, you know, that's when it's all the horses come back and they lead you through a postseason run. I'm a little nervous about that approach just because you've got guys like Leonard and Wall who really have missed a lot of time. So are they going to be sharp enough and have the stamina enough to make a playoff run, which, as we all know, is much more intense than an 82-game regular season? They've definitely got the depth, but I'm definitely not as confident about the Clippers today as I was before the season started.
How many games do you think Kawhi plays this year?
I would be surprised to see him play more than 50 games.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's a lot.
As sad as that sounds,
I'm thinking less.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised if he plays half the games.
Yeah. That's very
wild.
Possible.
Not half of 50.
Well,
half
the
of
question
82.
is, once they get like halfway through the season, depending on where they're at in the standings, they might have to look at Kawhi and say, "Hey, man, we really need you. Like, we gotta make up some ground in the standings here." So we'll see what happens, but they're definitely taking the cautious approach right now.
They can't afford to be stuck in a situation like they were last year, right? Where
no, this team has to avoid the play-in
tournament
tournament at all cost. At all cost.
How's John Wall been playing this year? I'm just looking at his stats here. Looks like 13.8 a game, almost 5 assists, 50% from the field, or 49. Not shooting the three ball well. So he's getting back into the rhythm. You know, not the assists you want to see, but he's shooting the ball well from the field, not from three-point range. I think they got some time. It's just interesting. It's
they
crazy.
Definitely have time.
John Wall's only 32, man. That's so wild to think about. It feels like this guy's been in the NBA forever. Should they take a shot on a guy like DeMarcus Cousins? He's still a free agent. We know that he's got, the Kentucky connection with John Wall.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the one knock against the Clippers roster is they don't have much size at all. But again, when you look at the players that they do have, like you mentioned, this team should be probably the best two-way 3-and-D team in the league. They're super versatile defenders that can switch a lot of different positions. So I'm not really sure that a big man is necessarily the number one thing or would make a huge difference for them, just because that's kind of the style that they want to play anyway. I think it's more about just, A, obviously making sure everybody is healthy, but B, getting new guys incorporated as well as guys that have missed times and they have, the opportunity to get the reps in together. That's the biggest problem for this team right now.
All right, let's move on here to the other team in LA. This is the Lakers. They are now 2-5 after beating the Pelicans tonight, 120-117. We've seen Russell Westbrook come off the bench here. One thing that you and I had been talking about all offseason of like, that's probably the best move for them, but is he willing to, accept that role? We've heard multiple teammates of him, talk about, this is a good move. We love what we've seen from him. He's flourishing off the bench. He plays 25 minutes tonight, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. A few rebounds and an assist away from a triple-double, which we know from him. But the most important thing is they get the win from this game. Anthony Davis has dealt with a couple injuries so far. LeBron James is being himself, being consistent. He almost has a triple-double tonight. But yeah, 2-5 is not where they want to be. What are you thinking if you're a Lakers fan? What are you thinking if you're LeBron James? What do you want to see from this team moving forward if you're either of those two people?
Well, I think if you're either one of those two people, first and foremost, you want to see them win more games, right? The Lakers The Lakers are in a tough position because unlike some of these other teams we've been talking about, the Clippers and the Nets, who have a very deep and talented players all over their roster, they just have other problems that aren't allowing them to put it together. The Lakers are not filled with a ton of talent, and they gave up a lot of really good bench options for guys that they're just trying to plug and play right now. The shooting obviously is a huge concern. They're on pace to be one of the worst shooting teams ever in the NBA in a day and age when you take more three-point shots than ever. So that's a recipe for disaster. The Russell Westbrook thing, it's unfortunate. I think it's going to get even harder once Dennis Schroeder comes back because, yes, while right now Russ has gone to the bench and he's taken advantage of those minutes, the one thing about Russell Westbrook is he's never not going to play hard. It doesn't matter whether he's playing off the bench or as a starter, or if he's happy or if he's not happy with his role or the coach or whatever. You put that guy in a game and he's going to go out there to try and kill the other team. That's just who Russell Westbrook is. So that's the good thing, right? Like, you never have to worry about his effort. It's more of just how this team is built. I don't think they're constructed the right way. And as I was saying before, when Dennis Schroeder comes back, all of a sudden now you have this logjam problem at guard. Who gets the minutes in what situations? Who's the starter? Does Patrick Beverley lose minutes then because Schroeder's going to start and Westbrook's already the guy off the bench? They just have it's like a Rubik's Cube they're trying to figure out right now, and I think Darvin Ham's having a really hard time.
Yeah, and rookie head coach, he's got a lot to figure out. It's really crazy that the Lakers actually pulled out a victory tonight. You mentioned the three-point shooting, 0 for 7 from three-point range from LeBron tonight. 1 for 4 from Westbrook. Austin Reeves, 0 for 3. Matt Ryan, 3 for 9. Lonnie Walker's the only one that kept this team afloat, 5 and 9 from three-point range for him. But Lakers pull out a win. Is it too little, too late? We will definitely see. Shout out to Ninja Style, first time here on the channel. Welcome, Ninja. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, we're giving away a $250 Fanatics gift card on this channel. So after this video is over, go ahead and enter into the contest. You'll see that video. Calvin, I also, I'm not sure if you knew or not, but Stephen A. Smith is currently COVID positive. So, thoughts out to him. Not a big fan, but I don't wish, harm on anybody.
Yes, get well soon, of course.
Unless you're a Laker. But yeah, hopefully Screamin' A. Smith will be back soon. Maybe we'll be lucky he'll lose his voice or he won't be able to scream anymore. That would definitely be really, really nice. But let's move on here. I want to take a look, kind of just a dive here into the standings, current standings. You can see Milwaukee they're looking strong, man. You're going to be half right on your finals pick, I think. They are 7.
I don't know. I picked them last year and they didn't make it, so we'll see.
When do you think they lose a game here, Calvin? Look at this point differential, 11.3, dude. They are playing exceptionally well.
Yes. I don't have their schedule pulled up here. Maybe I should. But look, this team's head and shoulders the best team in the league, I think, above everybody else. So they should win, theoretically every night. I know that's not going to happen, but, man, I mean, it's the NBA. You can lose on any given day, but they're a phenomenal team right now.
I wish we played Houston, Brooklyn, and Detroit twice for our first couple games. That would have been really, really nice. But yeah, looking here at the schedule, you got Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Atlanta, another Oklahoma City, San Antonio. Man, they got the easiest schedule in the NBA, Cal.
Well, I don't know about that, but they do. Every team is going to play those lesser teams at some point. But man, I'm looking forward to circle that game on Wednesday, November, 16th against the Cavaliers. That should be a really, really good game, and they should probably flex that to national TV.
Yeah, I agree. All right, looking back here at the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers, I've been talking about this team all offseason, even before they brought in Donovan Mitchell. They're 6-1 here. I think they're ahead of schedule, but this team is looking like one of the best teams in the league. I thought it maybe was a year, 2 years early for them. I don't know if I think that anymore, Calvin. Obviously, injuries and stuff can slow them down, but this team, the acquisition of, Donovan Mitchell going all in, this team is exceptional, dude. I think that they could be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference at the end of the season.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. The way they're playing right now, 100%. I mean, they're about to get Darius Garland back. This team's just firing on all cylinders. The Donovan Mitchell trade clearly was the right move to maybe push them over the top. This is a legit contender in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, we got Toronto up here at 5-3. Not a lot of people expected that. A career year by Pascal Siakam, spin move Siakam. Your second favorite player. For real, though,
Yes.
really, not Ben Simmons, jokingly. I know
Be
you
real,
like
son.
him a
Be
lot.
real.
In Atlanta, after the DeJounte Murray acquisition, 5-3 for them. They're playing well. You got Boston on here, 4-3. A team that, was in the finals last year. A lot of their fan base would probably want them to be better than 4-3 at this point, but all the coaching controversy and all that stuff, I think they're looking pretty good at 4-3 right now, sitting in that 5th seed. It's crazy just to think about the year that they had last year. It truly was a roller coaster, even into the offseason, right? Like, you're like below 500 at the trade deadline. You go on this huge run. You make it to the finals. You lose to the finals. Then your coach has all this controversy. They are on a roller coaster. But I really like what I've seen out of Jason Tatum. I think he's probably going to be an MVP candidate this year. I'm probably not going to win it. I think that's probably going to end up with Luka. But they're playing well. We got your Chicago Bulls up here, 5-4. Zach LaVine had an amazing night the other night. They're still waiting on Lonzo to get back. Any updates on Lonzo Ball?
They're hoping right now that January is going to be the tentative return date for him, sometime early next year. Okay.
Interesting. Definitely keep an eye on that, because he definitely helps that team. Washington at 4-4 is a surprise for me. You got Philadelphia down here 4-5, Miami 4-5, and then Brooklyn at 2-6. For some reason, I didn't expect that, but I probably should have. But just looking at this overall here, any teams here in the Eastern Conference, I can kind of scroll down a little bit more, that you're like, belong where they're at, don't belong? What do you expect as far as like shifting going for the standings here in the next month or two?
Well, I expect a lot of shifting and a lot of changing in both conferences, really from spots 3 through 10. I think that the NBA, with how much great young talent that is fairly evenly dispersed across the league, we're kind of entering this new era here in terms of parity. I mean, yes, you still have teams that are dominant every year, like the Warriors, like Phoenix during the regular season, Milwaukee, and those teams are still set up to be good for a while. But I think in terms of the entire league, top to bottom, you're going to see a lot more parity than we've seen in a very, very long time. A team could be in ninth one day, and a week later they could shoot all the way up to fourth or third.
Yep.
It just is going to depend on how the games play out. But I really think that we're in for quite a ride here over the next maybe 5 to 10 years, depending on how many players switch teams. But the fact that there's so many great players on so many teams now, it's going to be a real toss-up to say, yeah, this team is going to be locked in at the third spot for the whole year or something like that. I think you're going to see a lot of rotation. Obviously injuries play a part, but You're going to see a lot of movement, I think, and a lot of dogfights, and teams might, win their divisions with as low as like 48, 49 wins, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm really looking at the top 10 here, and honestly, I do expect Brooklyn to do better. I do, unless they decide to just completely blow it up. I feel like this team has so much talent. They just have to figure out a way to make it work. I thought Joe Harris coming back this year was definitely, going to help them. So, maybe I expect Brooklyn to be in the top 10 and either Washington or New York to fall out. But, I mean, you're right. There's going to be some shuffle going on here. It's only 8 games, 9 for some of these teams. So we're definitely going to see some movement here. Ninja Styles got a question for you. Would you do this is a trade between the Kings and the Jazz. Would you do Lauri Markkanen for Harrison Barnes and Terrence Davis?
That's very interesting. Yeah, I would certainly think about that. Definitely. It doesn't really change much in terms of what you do with Sabonis, right? Like, he's still the center. I think that's probably the biggest question right now to answer about the Kings roster is do they want to keep playing him at center? Do they move for a better backup center, or do they look for a starting center so that you can then move Domantas Sabonis to the power forward position? But Lauri Markkanen certainly would be a good, backup plan, if you want to call it that. He's having a fantastic start to the year. Yeah.
It doesn't help you in the rim protection department, but it does help you stretch the floor. I like Lauri Markkanen, but the thing for me is this is a classic buy high scenario where, like you said, he's playing so good. I honestly don't think Utah is going to do this deal unless you throw in a draft pick, and that would probably break the deal for me if I'm Monte McNair. But I like Lauri Markkanen. I expect him to end up with a contender this year, whether it's the Nets, the Lakers. I think this.
What if he's already on a contender?
A serious contender, Calvin. A serious contender. Alfie Man's been to Finland. That's nice. Ninja, I like your stance here on the expansion. We'll talk about that here in a second. I just kind of want to finish here going over the standings. Let's look at the Western Conference. Phoenix here is at the top at 6-1. Surprisingly, Portland's on here, Calvin, dude, 5-2. We saw them get one of these wins in person on opening night here at Golden One Center. Utah 6-3, another huge surprise. I honestly thought we were going to see New Orleans higher up on this list. However, they're still trying to make some of these pieces fit. Bringing Zion back in is as good as he is. It is a big change, right? Not having him at all last year and integrating him into the team. I do have to shout out my guy Jose GTA. He had a great game tonight against
he's
the LA
taken
Lakers.
Such a big step forward. He looks like a legit. Possibly
He's
even
good.
A starting caliber player now, which I'm
good.
really, really surprised by. So
he's good, man. He looks like a better Patrick Beverly to me. Honestly, he does. Then you got
they definitely found something with him.
You got Memphis here at 5-3. San Antonio also surprising at 5-3. Denver 4-3. I'd expect them to be better, but just like New Orleans, they're integrating in not new players, but players that they missed out last season. And then Oklahoma City's 4-3 as well. You got Dallas, Minnesota. Obviously, Golden State is probably the outlier here at 3-5. People expected them to be a much better team after winning the title. And then, you got the Lakers towards the bottom here. They are 2-5 now, not 1-5, like this says. But Calvin, give me your thoughts here on the Western Conference. Are you surprised to see Phoenix at the top after their whole meltdown last year in the playoffs, and a lot of the players not talking to the coaching staff or the team during the offseason?
No, I'm not surprised to see them at the top. Certainly, all that stuff could have had a more negative effect on this team, but I think Chris Paul's leadership is really shining through right now. I do believe that Monty Williams is a great coach as well. So, even though maybe he stumbled or didn't press all the right buttons down the stretch in the playoffs, I think that the team still respects him overall. And look, it's a really talented roster, right? Like, there's a reason why they pretty much have dominated during the regular season over the past couple of years. They're a very good team. So I'm certainly not surprised to see them at the top.
Yeah. I mean, Portland was the team for me that really had a question mark around whether this team was able to rebuild this fast or not after basically blowing up the whole team last offseason. Then obviously Utah, which is really strange to see them here in the 6th seed. I don't think this is going to last long. I think, weren't they like 6-1 a couple games ago? So they've lost 2 in a row or something like that. Oh no, they lost 1 in a row. But I expect them to fall. Obviously, I expect Golden State to move up higher on this list. I expect the Clippers to move up higher on this list. And probably Oklahoma City and San Antonio fall out of this top 10. But, we talk about how tough the West is. It's a tough conference. Hopefully Sacramento can make their way up there. But I think, Houston is definitely, probably the worst team in this conference, just like I think Orlando is the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I expect to see both of these teams at the bottom, but just like the Eastern Conference, I think we're going to see some shuffling as the season goes on. These teams like Utah, potentially Portland and San Antonio, I think the law of averages are going to catch up to these teams sooner rather than later. Probably a month from now, I don't think we'll see these teams anywhere near where they are now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that's a good take. Over the course of the season, things should even themselves out a little bit in terms of the outliers. But yeah, you never know. Like I said, there's a lot of evenly dispersed talent in the league, and every game is going to be a dogfight. So there may be some teams that you would have expected to be safe, not having to even think about the play-in tournament, that end up in that situation at the end of the year.
Ninja says, Minnesota, in my opinion, messed up big time with the Gobert trade. Anthony Edwards having a difficult time scoring in the paint now, and Towns can't defend power forwards. That's an interesting take. I mean, Minnesota, they definitely took a gamble here, right? There was not you could go back and look at like the past Spurs teams, maybe where they had like Tim Duncan and David Robinson. But, there's not a lot of teams that have had a lot of success having 2 huge centers playing next to each other. Cleveland is a team that comes to my mind as of recently. They had some regular season success, obviously nothing in the playoffs. But Minnesota is trying to take the next step forward. I know D'Angelo Russell's a free agent at the end of this season, so we'll see what happens with him. And Anthony Edwards, I know how high you are on him, and I think he's going to be an exceptional player. But, what would your response to Ninja be here?
I think that's a fair assessment. I still think it's early. You have to let this play out a little bit longer, and maybe even longer than a year, right? Like, if they don't get things together by the end of this year, you can call it a disappointment. But then, come back and next offseason and try to work on it more. But I do think that that's a fair problem to assess right now. I would say maybe I haven't watched a ton of Minnesota play this year. But to me, if you want to give Anthony Edwards an opportunity to get to the lane, you've got a guy in Gobert who's one of the best screen setters in the league. Let's run some more pick and roll with those two. That'll both free up the paint for Edwards to attack. It also leaves Gobert, who's a great rim runner, as a lob threat. Like, I think D'Angelo Russell right now is probably the biggest problem with this team. He just doesn't play well consistently enough for me. Turnovers have been a pretty big issue for him. And he's not a very good defensive guard. Patrick Beverley was really their go-to guy in that position last year. So they're still a young team overall, and the idea of playing Towns on the perimeter, I get that because he is not a great perimeter defender for sure. But again, having a guy like Rudy Gobert there is supposed to help make up for some of that. So I still think give it more time. But yeah, it's an interesting experiment that could work and it could not.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this experiment is it needs a couple years to work out. I don't think anybody expected Minnesota to win the title this year after making that deal. And yes, they gave up so much to get rid of
that's
Gobert,
the other issue,
which
right,
is probably why people expect so much out of him. But, we talked about this guy just had a severe throat infection, lost a ton of weight, was bedridden. Like, he needs some time to just get his legs back, plus integrating with the team and everybody playing together. But I get it, though. Like, I remember when Cleveland acquired Shaq, right? And everyone's talking about how LeBron can't get to the paint now because Shaq's clogging the lane, right? And the pick and roll can help with that in certain situations. But, maybe having two big guys, it does help that Towns can shoot exceptionally well and can space the floor a little bit. But having two bigs like that could affect Anthony Edwards' ability to get in the paint. It really could. It could draw another defender or allow people to kind of cheat and stay inside because Gobert's not drawing anybody outside. Even when in the pick and roll, he's not drawing anybody outside. The dude can't even hit a runner. But yeah, I think
he did hit that runner from the 3-point line the other day. Did you see that?
He's not doing that consistently. Come on. But yeah, I think this team is a great experiment. And as a basketball fan, I love it. I love when teams go out and take a risk and try something new and see what works. It's a lot of fun to watch. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, like you said. But I got to at least give them some credit for trying. And, they've drafted exceptionally well lately. And, I like what they're doing. So definitely a fun team to watch. Ninja agrees with you. Russell's the problem too. I think they'll end up floating around the 10th seed. What do you think they do? You think they trade Russell or you think they let him go at the deadline?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't see them wanting to make a move on him just yet. Again, like I said, it's still early. They're above 500, their record right now. So I think they have to still be kind of thinking, okay, we want to see what this looks like long term. If they are down around the 10th seed come, a couple weeks before the trade deadline, then that's when things are going to get interesting because that will be, probably considered a disappointment in terms of how the season's gone. And they're definitely not going to want to be on the fringe of the play-in tournament. So that's when I think you would see them try to aggressively make a move, whether it's for dealing D'Angelo Russell or somebody else. Yeah.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. But like I said, I like teams that try something. You don't want to just sit back and, just kind of be normal, be regular, right? Like that's
one thing we can throw in there though is if Kevin Durant all of a sudden becomes available, maybe that changes things because Minnesota's already a team that would have wanted him before. I mean, just like I said, every team would want him.
True.
But they actually have some players that I think Brooklyn would be more than happy to take in return.
Yeah, maybe return All-Star Russell to Brooklyn. But I think Minnesota is doing the complete opposite of what I've been knocking on Washington for, right? Is Washington is just kind of like, okay, we're just going to like run this out and see what happens, re-sign Beal and just kind of try and make some moves and add stuff. But I like Minnesota because they're trying new things. They're really taking some swings at it. Even if you don't hit anything, I want to hear the gun go off. And that's exactly what Minnesota's doing right now. So shout out to them. Let's talk about Golden State. They're here almost on the bottom of the Western Conference. They got one more win than us, the Kings. They're 3-5. A lot of people are talking about they're looking old. Draymond Green is looking washed. Klay Thompson showing his age here. Thompson, for me, he seems like such a different guy this year. I don't know what kind of confidence boost they got out of winning that ring last year, but I've never seen him getting ejected from games, calling other players out, yelling, "I got 4 rings," all this stuff. And then I've seen him do it in the media too. He said, I tore my effing knee and my Achilles in back-to-back seasons. Give me a chance. It's going to take a while. Like, it's wild, man. He's getting angry. We all know that Draymond Green is angry. He's punching people at practice. I, for one, told you and Pat, who, Pat is a friend of the channel, big Warriors fan. We like to rag on him. But I think I told you guys straight up, if the Warriors do not punish Draymond Green for what happened, I think this is the beginning of the end for them. And, this is not they're just going to drop off, but I think that they've peaked and they're on their way back down, which is tough to say because I really do like some of the young talent they have on that team in Moses Moody, Kuminga, who they just picked up options on, and also I'm blanking on that
Jordan
center,
Poole, of course.
James Wiseman.
Yeah, him too.
But what are your thoughts here on Golden State? Am I just way too early?
Oh yeah, definitely way too early. Look, I mean, they've got 5 losses. They're only 2 losses out of the third seed in the wing or in the loss column. So it is definitely too early. However, I do agree with you that they seem to have a different feel to them now, and I sympathize with or for Klay Thompson a lot, right? Like the dude almost had his entire basketball life taken away from him. He finally is able to get it back. Then he misses the all-time 75 list. Then they keep, everybody keeps saying the Warriors are done. The Warriors are done in those couple years when Klay and Steph and Draymond were pretty much always hurt and missed time. Then they're able to come back together and miraculously win a title. That, to me, just like released all of this pent-up emotion in all of these guys, even Steph to a certain degree, but Steph's obviously been the one consistent, bright, shining star through this whole thing for the Warriors. So I feel for Klay because, when you're at the top of your game and you win all the time, you just feel invincible. Like it's hard not to. And now he feels like he every day has to prove to everyone who he is again. So I definitely understand where some of that animosity or just outspokenness could come from in general, right? But Draymond is his own separate story. We don't even need to go there with him. But yeah, they're like a teeter-totter pretty much. You've got the old vets who you're not sure how much long they could hang on, and then the young guys who show a lot of promise, but how quickly will they be able to just totally, absorb those roles that Draymond and Klay and Steph have filled for so long. It doesn't, click like that instantly for most teams. So they still have a load of talent on that team, and I don't think anybody should be writing them off just yet. But when you look at the long term, it does get a little cloudy, I think.
Yeah. I totally agree with Brian here. No Maurice Spates, no David West, to kind of be that guy. We've seen, what's that other dude? The center they have. I'm so blanking, dude. It's late.
Kevon Looney?
Kevon Looney has stepped in and tried to be that guy, and I think he's done a good job, but he's not a David West.
He's done a great job.
Or most Spates.
He's arguably the most underrated player on that whole team, right? Like he does so much for them.
I agree. I'm just saying he's not the Spates or West enforcer guy, right? He's kind of a more laid back
at least that we can
guy.
see, right? I mean,
yes.
Behind closed doors in practice in the locker room, it might be a different situation, but that's we don't get to see that stuff. So
Alfie Man says they need somebody to slap Draymond. Anybody. I couldn't agree more.
Steve Kerr should slap Draymond.
That'd be
He's probably
hilarious.
the only guy that could get away with it.
That'd be hilarious. All right, I want to talk a little bit here about NBA expansion, because they were expected to announce expansion during those games in Seattle and Las Vegas, and they left us hanging, Calvin. It was announced by Slam Magazine back on October 24th, so just about a week ago, that Adam Silver is delaying league expansion while the NBA negotiates media deals. So the current deals are expected to expire after the 2024-2025 season. Apparently ratings have been up dramatically since the COVID pandemic and all the shutdowns. We also have, I believe, an NBA collective bargaining agreement that expires before this as well. But apparently they're holding off on these expansions until all these deals are negotiated and signed. So it's good and bad. I want to hear your thoughts on the delay, and then also, once this does go through, what do you think the effect on the league overall will be?
Ooh. You're really throwing some tough ones at me today.
I am.
Look, in terms of the delay, stuff like this comes up. I mean, you have to make sure that you can pay all the bills, right, before you add 2 more teams. So I think that they'll figure out a way to get this done. It's probably just a tiny kink or a wrench thrown in right now. But and I'm not even sure. We've heard that they want to announce expansion, but there's really hasn't been much talk about giving an actual deadline or when that might be. So I think they're just kind of throwing this stuff out there to keep people interested, but knowing that it's going to be a work in progress. What does it do what effect does it have on the league? Very tough question to answer. I mean, it depends on how quickly they're able to get this stuff in. I mean, let's say, for example, they drastically speed up the process, and we have teams in Seattle and Vegas next year. Does that mean one of them ends up with the number 1 pick somehow and drafts Victor Wembanyama? I think that that's a very unlikely situation, that they'll have 2 teams ready to go by next year. But in terms of a ripple effect on the league, there's so many. It's like the multiverse right now. There's so many different outcomes that could potentially be possible. We just kind of have to wait to see when things are actually scheduled to happen, so you can make a better guess on what effect it will have in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I don't think they will be ready to have 2 teams by the end of this offseason.
No, I don't think
so. However,
either.
If they did, that would probably be the best thing they could do, right? They would disincentivize tanking this year for Victor Wembanyama. The 2, new teams would end up with Victor and Scoot Henderson, 2 great guys to build your franchises around.
Build your team around. Absolutely.
It just might be a little bit
probably
too
not
early.
Reasonable. Yeah.
Might be a little bit too early. But overall, I think as soon as expansion happens, it's going to be the same as it always is. It dilutes the talent pool temporarily as teams are only able to protect certain players. I think it's going to affect a team like the Golden State Warriors the most, right? Because they have so much talent on that team, they're not going to be able to protect them all. So they're probably going to end up losing guys like Moses Moody, potentially Kuminga or Wiseman, because they're not going to be able to hold on to all those players. But in the long term, I think it's a good thing for the NBA. It provides more opportunities, more jobs for young people and young players. I think it's overall will be good for the NBA, but I could see a temporary dilution of talent.
Yeah, I think so. I've made a couple points today on how there's more talent in the league than there ever has been. So I think that definitely helps combat that problem a little bit. I just hope that we don't see the NBA adding more play-in teams, more wild card bullshit, all that stuff. Don't go that route. We don't need more bad teams in playoff or non-playoff situations, whatever the hell the play-in tournament calls itself.
If there's a team in Las Vegas, that team's going to get good really fast somehow. We saw it with the Golden Knights. We have not seen it with the Raiders yet, but yes. That's a team that doesn't, or a city that does not like to lose. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Ninja Style's got an interesting 3-team trade here. Lakers get Draymond Green and Buddy Hield Warriors get Miles Turner, Pacers get Russell Westbrook, Warriors 2027 first, and Lakers 2026, 2027. I don't think the Lakers are able to give up picks until 2027. You can't trade consecutive, so it would be, I believe, 2027, 2029. I'm sorry, man. I don't see this trade happening. I honestly don't see why the Warriors would do this trade. Right?
I don't know. I think the Warriors come out the best in this trade, personally. But
they're giving up a first-round pick and Draymond Green.
Yeah, Draymond Green, who probably is on his way out in terms of his playing ability, for a guy in Miles Turner that I think would fit that team fantastically well.
He would, yeah, he would.
I mean, I got to be honest. I think this is one of the better. 3-team trades are really, really hard, right, to propose. There's just so many factors, so many different teams and front offices having to get on the same page. This is actually one of the better 3-team trade deals that I've seen out there from just, a fan. So I give it a lot of props to Ninja Style here. I like this deal.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I mean, I think that the Pacers come out of this trade with an absolute steal. Like, you're giving up Buddy Hield and you get 3 first-round picks and Russell Westbrook.
Giving up Miles Turner also.
Miles Turner. That's probably the best deal that they could get for these guys. But I still don't see the Warriors trading. I don't see them trading Draymond Green.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that in the broad scheme of things, when you try to look at a trade, you say, okay, is there enough reason for every team to want this? And I think that each team in this deal gets something that they want really, really badly. So for that reason, I think it's a good trade.
I mean, dude, honestly, I think that Miles Turner, it makes them a better team than Draymond Green. I really do. But I think that Draymond I think he's the leader of that team, and I don't think they want to give that up. So we'll see what happens, at the end of this season. Does he opt in for the final year of his deal? But yeah. The more that I look at it, the more realistic it does seem. Definitely. All right, Calvin. It's that time again. You guys ready? Here we go.
Yeah?
Barry, what are you doing?
You kidding me? She's hot as hell. Looking for a little slap and pickle.
You sure you want to do this, man? You're drunk.
I'm drunk. You're drunk. Everybody's drunk.
Well, we all remember how amazing it was to watch LeBron James win Cleveland's first ever NBA championship after he returned home. The drunk take of the week this week is Cleveland will win another title before LeBron James does. It may be more titles than LeBron James ever will win for the rest of his career.
Wow, what a take. Is that sponsored by Dan Gilbert?
Yes, sponsored by Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage.
Oh, man, what a take. What a take. Maybe you've had a little too many, Calvin. But no, I like that take a lot. I think that Cleveland is looking exceptionally well. Obviously much better than the Lakers. Like I said on the last show, this is probably the first year where I've legitimately looked at a LeBron James-led team and been like, this dude's he doesn't have a chance to win a title. He's probably not going to win another title, which, as a LeBron fan, and that's tough too, because I'm a Kings fan and I'm a LeBron fan, but I've been a LeBron fan way before he was with the Lakers. So I'm kind of mixed on that, but definitely an interesting take there, Calvin. And I love the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that pretty much wraps up our show for this week. Make sure you guys join in next week. We got a great surprise for you. We got a special guest. Jackie Chan is joining us next week on the show. So make sure you guys join in for that. Please don't forget to smash up that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Calvin, any last words for the barflies out there?
Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. A lot of you were on both streams tonight, Royal Rebounds and Basketball at the Bar. So thank you so much for staying with us for the long block of time. And We always have fun. We try to make it fun for you guys. So if you had fun, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you all taking out the time of your day to hang out with us. We greatly appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Saturday on Royal Rebounds for Kings postgame, and we will be back next week on this channel for another Wednesday night party. You guys have a wonderful evening. Drive home safe, and as always, don't forget to tip your bartender. These nuts.